Members, here we go. Jake How's in a good mood. Things are going good for Jake How. I am super excited for today's show and to talk to you. So many exciting things going on here at This Week in Startups. I don't even know where to begin some days at how great things are going right now. Got a great show for you today, and the guests have been nothing short of spectacular. Somebody has their microphone on my team. Did somebody get that fixed on their side? Is that you, Charles? I heard a massive reverb. Was that? Was Rachel? I see Rachel typing in the Slack room. Always good when you see the typing going on. You know somebody's about to confess. You left your microphone on and you had your thing on. That was me. Okay, Rachel. Rachel, rule number one of being a producer on a podcast is you gotta mute yourself when not talking. Okay.
Sorry, I'll mute myself now. Sorry.
It's okay. I notice everything. One of my superpowers, as you're learning, Rachel, is that you could do like 100 things and I will not notice any of them or mention any of them. And then like you'll be halfway across the room and you'll trip and like an ounce of your coffee will spill on the rug. And being the podcast dad I am, I'm like, what's going on over here? That rug costs money. Who left the door open? It's the heat's on and the door's open and you're spilling coffee on the rug. Boom. I am like now podcast dad. I notice everything. I literally have turned into my dad with the HVAC.
Yeah, I'll make sure to carry cups with lids.
You got to have
hell hath no fury like Jason finding a dirty cup in the office sink.
Oof,
Jason, is your quick time going?
Me. What I do is when we would have the office, my quick time is going. I'm at 2 minutes and 36 seconds. Thanks for checking. When I was in the office, what I would do is I would just come down to the kitchen to get my coffee. I'd see like 8 things, and I'd be like, oh, the sink is full of dirty dishes. Oh, you know what? Let me be 15 minutes late for my next founder call while I put all of your dishes into the dishwasher. I just make a whole show of it, just like dad going around and closing all the doors and turning the thermostat, off because your daughter's opened every door and put the heat. And here's how thermostats work. I just want to go on a sort of side tangent. If you put if it's 65 degrees in your house and you put the thermostat and you want the heat to be 70, which is warm, by the way. If you're wearing a sweater and it's 70 degrees, you're going to take the sweater off. So put a sweater on if it's 65 and just deal with the 65. It's crisp. Anyway, if you want it to be 70, putting the thermostat at anywhere from 70 to 85 has the same desired effect. The HVAC system will work as hard as possible until you hit 70. Correct, Charles?
Absolutely.
Now, what happens if you unnecessarily put the thermostat at 85? What happens? This happens in cars too. People get into their car, they put it on max heat, 86 degrees. What happens in the car if you want it to be 70 degrees?
Everyone takes off all of their overlayers because they get hot.
Yeah, but what happens to the actual temperature in the car? If you wanted it to go to 70 and you put it at 86, what happens?
It gets to 86.
Exactly. You forget to turn it down. So people think that they're hitting an accelerator key by putting, they're like running the engine twice as hard by putting it at 86. That's not how a thermostat works. Thermostat, the heating system in a car or a home will work as fast as possible to get to 70. And then you forget you put it on 80. And then you're blowing through so much energy and destroying the environment. I tried to put it on like the thermostat wars are crazy. I tried to use the ecosystem, turn the, heat on if it hits 65, turn the air conditioner on if it hits 78 or something. And let's just live between those two numbers. If you feel the temperature isn't perfect, put a sweater on or wear long pants or put on some socks. No, you got to be wearing beachwear and then adjusting the heat to the least amount of clothes you could possibly be wearing. I can't take it anymore.
It reminds me of that Family Guy scene where
I never watched it, but yeah.
There was like a constant flurry of different dads coming into his house saying, Peter, my thing went off. Has someone touched your thermostat? And they're just like various men come in the door, like as if they've all got this little thermostat.
Yes, they've got the dad thermostat packed going. All right, let's say hi to my noties. So many noties here. Raccoon Bar, number 1 today. Leaving... I don't know Raccoon Bar. That's a new one. Leaving
Levin
Number, Paul, Mohammed, Luke H, Alex A, Dusty G, Baber R again, X Griffin 22, Abdullah again, Zen Prophet, my guy, Empire Report TV. That's somebody just promoting themselves. Well played. Armel Kemby, Ben Mitz. Can we just talk about Empire Report 4? Empire Report TV. What a genius. He realizes I'm going to read the name out loud and he's going to get a free ad on the Noti Gang. Those members who have notifications turned on YouTube. Armel, Ben, Higgins, Jeremy, Jay, George, Giacomo, Luke. Yeah, a lot of interesting people here today. Welcome, everybody. We've got a lot of news to get through. Patrick is here, and so is Toby, and so is Table Salt. Oh, just so many great folks here today.
Zen Prophet.
Of course, Zen Prophet's here. I don't have to. It's sort of like I can just even not look at the list of noties coming in and just say Zen Prophet. All right, so we have some news to do, correct? And then we have to do the 100-point checklist.
Nick kind of wanted you to do the checklist first so that he can be around.
Well, when is this news for?
News is for tomorrow, so I'll cut.
Wait, why am I reading news for today?
I'm sorry. The news is for today. I'll cut that into today's show. Checklist is for tomorrow, but Nick wanted to be around when you did the news.
Nick wants to be around when I do the news.
Nick just wants to make sure that we get the startup checklist done, because if for some reason
then we don't have a show for tomorrow.
Then we don't have a show tomorrow. So
okay, I'm going to call it audible. I'm going to do the news first. So I'm more interested in the news. So yeah, great guys.
Aye.
There you go. There's the right answer. Wow, look at you've been working with Presh. I mean, unless you have a strong opinion, if the boss says, "Hey, here's how I think we should do it," unless there's some like really overriding strong opinion, the correct answer is, "Sir, yes, sir." Aye, Captain. Whatever. If the captain's "Can I get an iced tea?" You're not like Arnold Palmer, maybe pink lemonade. Maybe you should drink more water. It's like fucking captain's like steering the ship. Just give him the fucking iced tea and let's move on. All right. Is that a good enough analogy? You understand? Now, if there's a huge fucking iceberg, then be like iceberg.
Yeah.
Right?
You seem like you have enough energy, so I'm feeling good. I'm feeling confident on that. We're not making.
So we're going to start with the. Are we starting with the Constitution grift or the Quentin Tarantino grift? Which grift are we starting with?
So we've got a couple of stories. I think we've got a record scheduled for this evening that we were going to do a quick hit on the Constitution DAO. Probably then.
Why? Because that's when the thing is happening?
Yes. It wraps up at 3:30 p.m. Pacific time. We could actually put in the results and have a nice, fresh, complete story for tomorrow at the start of the show.
Interesting. Okay, so that's what we'll do. Okay, so let's do the Quentin Tarantino one. All right, everybody ready? Quick time going. I'm going to do the Quentin Tarantino one. Hey, so if somebody if anybody works here still, when Charles does is really good when we're doing what Charles does that's really good. I'm sorry, not Charles. Charlie does really well is he will post supporting links into the chat rooms while we're doing this. So here we got the Quentin Tarantino thing. You could put in some bullet points here, or you could put in the link to the story, and that would be pretty cool, right? Or if a tweet comes up or whatever. So then people who are following the chat would then interact in the chat. And if there's more activity in the chat, I think that's better for the algorithm on YouTube. So let's try that right now. If everybody in the chat can tell me what's one of their favorite episodes of This Week in Startups, either this year or all time. So this year, say in the last year or so, you don't have to have it perfect, but go ahead. Everybody in the chat rooms across all platforms, just want to know, do you have a favorite guest or episode or moment historically or this year? Tell me both. And if you do, I will call out your name if I think it's interesting. And I would like everybody who's on YouTube right now or any other service to just hit the like button or the star button or the favorite button. What does that do? It kind of cracks the algorithm and then takes the live stream and sends it to more places. It is super, super helpful. So right now we probably have 50 people on YouTube is what we normally get from the notice.
We've got 55 watching and 17 likes.
Great. So we should get up to, if we have 55 right now and 17, if we get that to 30 or 40, you're going to see the 55 go up dramatically. So here we go. I was going to do Picasso and I didn't wind up using Picasso I got a ski house. It's always been a dream of mine to have a ski place. So I wanted to start building those memories with my daughters and they love skiing. So I was like, all right, fair enough. I'll just get something. And I'll tell you why I didn't go with Picasso for buying a ski place. The reason I didn't go with it was because I need it during Christmas because that's when the memories are going to be formed. And then with Picasso, I'd have a 1 in 8 chance of getting Christmas. Or if I bought 2/8 of it, I guess I'd have a 1 in 4 chance of getting, which means every 4 Christmases basically, or every 8 Christmases. Well, that kind of sucks. But I was thinking if I bought a beach house or a summer house somewhere, I might very well do the Picasso thing where it would make sense if you wanted to go for the summer, to Malibu or something like that. Let's say they have Malibu houses up there. It's kind of a dope place to go in the summer, or if you like Palm Springs or whatever, but that wouldn't be for the summer. That'd be winter, I guess. You could, if you have 40 days and there's 100 days of summer, basically, you would have 1/8 of those. So at a minimum, you'd have 2 weeks, I guess, over the 12 weeks or something like that. You probably get every summer. So you probably would do okay. And then you could do the other times, but that is kind of the challenge with these. What I kind of want to do is, I thought Picasso's a little too expensive. I think somebody should just make this a platform and that does it as like software, almost like a DAO. And we're going to talk about DAOs later in the program, which I'm obviously enamored by. And this is all just, by the way, content for the Noti gangs and the 50 people who are here. I mean, we're starting to leave it up actually. But that's why I'm enamored with DAOs. Like, imagine if I created a DAO to buy the most spectacular home in Tuscany, since I like Italy. So let's say there's like a $20 million farm. We raise a $20 million DAO to buy that like farm or whatever. And let's say it's going to cost $1 million a year to maintain, upgrade it, and to operate it, right? Okay, great. Let's say this place has, 5 buildings and, 20 different people could stay there at a time. You buy into the DAO. The DAO owns it forever. They guarantee they're never going to sell it. And then you get to use it in perpetuity as a shareholder in it. If you don't use it, that's fine. And it gets preserved as some, preservation kind of thing. So that's where I think DAOs are kind of interesting. Like, not just for like capital formation for funds like I do, because those kind of work and you're oversubscribed anyway, but new kind of ideas. Like if you wanted to buy the Constitution is an interesting one, or if you wanted to fund Quentin Tarantino's next movie, let's say. So I'll put a note in this Quentin Tarantino story about funding Quentin Tarantino's next movie, because I made that analogy 20 years ago when I was a journalist. Okay. For people who are talking about the show, I see some folks really liked Glenn Kelman from Redfin. Do we have him booked again on the schedule?
No. We do not have him a date on the calendar yet.
Can we book him for December or January and just say, hey, there's so much going on in real estate. We'd love to have you on again, December, January, or February. Any of these dates work?
Yes.
Yeah. Capiche? You should come up with a little flavor with the, well, Captain, my captain, sir. Yes, sir. Yeah. Yes is good, but, capiche, have fun with it is what I'm saying. Multicoin and Solana episode with the guy from Austin was good. Yeah, I agree with that. Toby was great. Do we have Toby booked again? Have we booked Toby?
I was trying to come up with something more creative, but I couldn't.
Sir, okay, anyway, somebody help him out. He's not the most creative guy in the world. But get shit done, but I'm not looking for branding.
No, I disagree. Have you seen his thumbnails? They're amazing.
Oh yeah, you know what? I was going to tell you about the thumbnails. Don't go too goofy with me. I'm not a fan of me being photoshopped into the Shark Tank thing. I get it. But I'm not I'm a little too, I'm 51. I'm going to be 51 at the end of the month. Like, all right. Me doing that kind of stuff looks a little thirsty to me. I don't know how you feel about it, but like, let's make me like a boring older statesman and like no goofy. Like I'm not Mr. Beast. Okay. Like, I'm not, I don't want to, I don't want people thinking I'm trying to be Mr. Beast. Like, have a little bit of fun with it, but I thought like making me all the Shark Tank people looks thirsty. Let's try to take the brand a little more seriously. Justin Kahn was great the other day. He's a really cool cat. I like that too. John Carrier of Theranos. We emailed him and offered him to come back on with the Theranos stuff. Is he coming back on, or did he return our emails?
He did not return Nick's email.
Okay, so put him on the short list. Make sure we are relentless about that. Sir Charles loves Ed Catmull episodes 665 and 666. If you haven't watched those, folks, that's great. Hey, here's an idea, Justin. Can we make a supercut of the Ed Catmull episode, or maybe ask a fan to do an Ed Catmull episode? Because I thought there was a lot of good stuff in there.
And the book, fantastic book.
I mean, we were doing a Notion page for every episode with all the bullet points on it, right?
We were.
And how many did we wind up doing? Like 20 of those or something?
Yeah. I can get an actual count. I believe it was upwards of 30 or 40.
And what we were paying people $100 to do them?
We did not have a set reward mechanism. We probably had 15 crowdsourced ones.
15 and they came out good?
Yeah.
So interesting. I would really like to get an archivist on board to just write this. Do you think is there somebody in the world who wants to work from anywhere for either half-time or full-time, 4 hours a day, 5 hours a day, or 8 hours a day to be the Twist archivist? And we'll pay you benefits, salary, everything, be part of the team. Or if you just want to be a freelancer. Can we put up a job description for Twist archivist on the Twist archive page and just say, hey, we're looking for this, and then put up a job description? I'm like, let's see if we can fill that position, either hourly or
Is that the goal would
full-time.
be to create more bullet points and then just make sure that we're researching?
I would like the person
old
to
content?
manage the entire archive on a Notion with a page for each episode, and that would have all the learnings and timestamps, like super timestamps, basically, to get you through every episode. I think that's what people want. I don't like. There's a transcript, which is great. We could work on that as well, and I think ultimately all these transcripts will be on Google or somewhere, so somebody else would do that for us because it already exists on, I guess, YouTube in some ways when you can see it there, but it's not easy to search. But no, just bullet points is what people want, right? Timestamps, lesson learned, what they talked about, some quotes maybe. What did people respond to when we did those?
Yeah, we were circulating them on LinkedIn every day, and
did they drive any traffic or engagement, comments, anything? Do we have any way to know if that's successful? I guess is my question.
They were driving.
So remember I said
post things.
Remember I said posting links into the chat would be good. I don't even know where those exist. Did we have a web page for those? What was the short URL for it?
I am posting it now.
Is it like archive or something like that? /archive? Oh, notes. Yeah, so if you go to This Week in Startup /notes. So we made, this is the This Week in Startups Notion we made. And, oh, look, it's got meetups on it.
Yeah, we have some of the info.
So do we maintain this still?
We use it for our public-facing pages as well, so that way we're not accidentally revealing our internal.
But is this part of our internal? Or is this all external? Like it's an external instance of Notion?
This is an external instance.
Perfect. So there's nothing, so we can't make a mistake or whatever you're saying. And then Pod Notes, you click on Pod Notes, you get to a heading, and then you have to hit the down button. Yeah, it's not organized very well, but which Pod Notes do you think was the best of these? They look pretty good.
Like the Tiger ones. The Tiger Global is outpacing VC. That was good.
Let me look at this one. Okay. So we will have Travis from Cloud Kitchen's Uber on at some point. He's not doing any press right now, but if he does, we'd be the first place he would go. I'm sure of that. Yeah, it's not bad, I guess. Did we write this or somebody else write it?
That was one we wrote.
Got it. Okay. So I guess the question is, like, we need to, you know how like Rachel is running like the crazy meetup group? I wonder if we should have a full-time person just doing this and building this out over time and trying to get these all SEO'd and then posting them in multiple places would be kind of cool, like as we did.
Yeah, the SEO people said that posting multiple places that was bad for SEO. Like
what I would do though is I would post different versions of it. So like the canonical version could be the Notion, but then you could do a short one with just like the top bullet points and then say for the full notes, on LinkedIn or something, go here, boom. So not just cut and paste everything. They're right about duplicate content. That confuses the algorithm. It doesn't know which one to go to, but okay, cool. All right, let's get the show started. How many viewers and how many thumbs up do we have, by the way?
We are at 42 on YouTube, thumbs up, and total viewers 82 on YouTube.
Yeah, so see how that went up? So here's what I want you to do. In the chat room, as a best practice now, so we should have a punch list for managing the chat room. You should ask questions to people. So number one, supporting links. Number two, ask questions to the audience in the chat. And number three, ask people to thumbs up and give them an idea. Oh, wow, we got 10 more thumbs up. Can everybody thumbs up? So 3 things on the checklist right now. Sharing our links as we do them in real time. Replying to people. That'd be another one. Giving them a count. And then just generally asking them questions. Supporting links, questions, thumbs up, and replies. Rachel, thank you. So we'll put that on our punch list. Every time we come up with something for people who are watching my management style, we like to talk about things in real time and then test things. And one of the things we've really done a great job is checklists. So we do a checklist for everything now. It just changes everything. So when you hear them say, hey, can you tell me your QuickTime's on? And then they say 2 minutes later, how many seconds is your QuickTime? That's because we realized a lot of times I'll go to click it, I make a mistake like 1 out of 20 times. And then I didn't start QuickTime or something happened, I accidentally shut it down or whatever. And same thing happens with our guest. But if you ask them for how many minutes has your QuickTime been recording, kind of hard to screw up. So the checklist has 2 of those, which would be just like a pilot saying, hey, flaps 10%. And then, 7 items later on the checklist, you say, confirming flaps. And the person says 10%. Boom. So it really works. There's the going live on Restream checklist. Cool. So we have one for going live, and then we have one when live. So somebody should be the chat jockey, which means like I see nobody has responded to anybody in the chat here, and I think welcoming them or whatever. And there is a way to deputize people to be chat monitors for us inside the chat, which means they can delete chats or whatever. So that's something we can do on the channel as well. You could make, Zen Prophet or ENIAC chat mods, and they'll mod the chat when it starts going fast. But I want to get more chats going here, which means just thanking folks and saying hi to them and whatever. STG80's here. That's great. Okay, let's do the first story. And just so you know, the first story is at 21 minutes into my audio file. Charles, just to make it easier for you.
Yep. Thank you.
Everybody ready on your side? And is there any pictures or anything that are going to come up during the Miramax thing?
During the Miramax,
you have no supporting material. So again, every story on our punch list for producers, supporting material, supporting material, supporting material. He's doing 7 pages from his screenplay. Are those 7 pages? Can you see them anywhere? Do you have a link to them? Where are they located? The Pulp Fiction ones? First thing people are going to want to know.
You can
Producers?
see them over on TarantinoNFTs.com. I'm dropping that into the chat right now. And I can find some supporting docs now.
TarantinoNFTs.com. Perfect. So there you go. Boom. But we didn't have this in the notes, and Charles wasn't aware of it. So Charles, as a backstop, every story we do, I want you on your checklist to say any supporting materials for this one. Don't see any supporting materials, and you can actually do a little producing there.
Okay.
Hey, I found some supporting materials, or should we use this? Should we do that? Right. So we like to have the visual for the audience here.
Absolutely. Often if it's a quote, those go in post. So there are visuals that go with it. And we do run through the checklist and say, are there any? But I will...
I would like to have more for the Noti Gang members who are
more.
watching live. So
Understood.
I like this idea of popping stuff up live. Does it screw up your view of me in the show for post-production? Or do you have a separate stream of just me?
No, I don't have a separate stream. That is on their radar, but it's not something they have implemented or able to implement. So that's why I'm always I err on the side of not putting them in live.
Got it. So what's the solution to that? To get the best of both worlds? I mean, it's a pretty easy one. Side-by-side boxes. Instead of layering them on top, just side-by-side boxes, because then you still have the version of me, right? You could just clip it.
Right.
Does that cause a problem when you do that?
Well, it means if I want you full screen, I only have you, like, for instance, here are the screenshots I have ready. So I can put you sort of like so. But then if I want to take you out, I have to then blow you up, which will reduce the quality down. So that's why I try to, if I know it's absolutely the correct thing and it's going to go in there, or if I know that something, I can use it as a placeholder. So I can put things over the top of that.
Oh, that's okay. So that's even better. Yeah, so that works. Yeah. All right. So anyway, what I would like you to do is figure out a way to get more supporting material in without compromising the post-production process. That's like a general kind of rubric. Make sense?
Okay. Yes.
What do you guys on a scale of 1 to 10? Now, what do you think of my management and training techniques? People in the YouTube chat room. What do you think of, like, I wanted you to see how I produce the show in real time as the host and a producer. I'm kind of like try to do both of these things. What do you think about my management style and like the way I explain things to people and kind of, I don't know, just your scale of 1 to 10, how good am I at like training people up, and what do you think of my general style? 100x, sink or swim, 8, 9, 10 of 10, 10, great to see insights, 9.9. Anything, I mean, listen, you guys are my stands, so I appreciate that. It's a bit loaded. Firm but fair. Give me a criticism. Like, is there a criticism of how I could manage better this team in terms of keeping because I take it fucking serious here to make the show better and better every day. So what do you think I could do better, if at all, anything? I mean, it may not be anything you can think of. You're very sweet. 10 of 10 so far. I try to keep it funny too. Like I'm always like kind of half laughing when I'm, chewing people out or whatever. You have a New York City, no BS style. That's correct. Yes. Yes. You like to see behind the curtain. That's interesting. Explain more on your reasoning. Yes. Oh, you're very sweet. Thank you. That's Walter. I mean, Walton is like my number one fan right now. Sandwich technique, LOL. More Jack Welch like. The berating is pretty balanced. Yeah, I agree, ENIAC. Thank you. Are you seeing growth in the productions? I am seeing massive growth in the production performance, yes. I mean, all three of the full-time producers here are crushing it, and Charles on the ones and the twos. I mean, I would say what I'm trying to do is make the show 5% better a week, which isn't a lot when you think about it, but compounding growth, rule of 72, I mean, it basically means every 14 weeks, every 2 quarters, the show should get twice as good. I don't know if we're actually hitting that. I'm trying to hit that, but set expectations before. Love the book. I've read it many times. Talk about the .com boom times. Transparency is awesome. Thanks for sharing this part of the process. Honestly, the pace with Twitter's features rollout, getting so much improved every day. Engagement chat is fantastic. All right, great. You're succeeding. Great. I would try to explain how your feedback will help the overall show. Yes. Oh, that's a good one. Yes. So the reason I want more content in here is so that, more supporting materials is it keeps people watching the video. And I think video is a key part of this. And I noticed the YouTubers have a lot of stuff going on the screen as opposed to just the talking head. So more supporting material. And then I noticed on Nick's Fan TV, he is much more interactive with the audience than I am. And I think that's why he trends more. So I think YouTube looks at the chat velocity, the thumbs up, and the subscribers and all that. And then that in the mix grows the channel and that video in the future. So now if we leave these videos up, I'm noticing they get 4,000 or 5,000 views immediately. So I think that there's something popular about watching the live stream and going behind the scenes that people really like. And it will grow the channel overall. All right. Can I talk to your staff about their problems related to productivity? I don't know exactly. You want me to talk to your staff or you want to talk to my staff? They're pretty productive. Or maybe they're talking to each other in the chat. Okay, hey, everybody in the chat room, tell me where you're calling in from. What city, what country? Show me your flags. Give me an emoji of your country flag. If it's China, Japan, wherever you are, Australia, New Zealand, put it in there and tell us where you are. Are you an MF Doom fan? Well, I mean, you saw the MF Doom mask right there. But it's also the Gladiator mask. So I do get that a lot. All right, let's do Quentin Tarantino in 3, 2. All right, director Quentin Tarantino is being sued by Miramax over his Pulp Fiction NFT plans.
Sorry, Jason. Can we start again? Quentin, not Quinton.
I said Quentin.
It's got an E at the beginning. Quentin. There you go.
Quentin? I've never heard it say Quentin. Is that correct, everybody in the chat room? Quentin?
Wait, am I going bonkers? It is Quentin too, isn't it?
I mean, I don't know. You speak
Wait a minute,
UK. We speak English over here.
Quentin.
I think Jason's accent makes anything forgivable in terms of
Quentin
these minor
Tarantino.
nuances.
How do you say, Justin? You say Quentin Tarantino.
Yeah, I would say Quentin.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I would say. I mean, but I'm not
Holy
necessarily saying
fucking
I'm.
Christ! This guy shut the whole show down so I could say tomato. There's like 6 people watching in the UK, and they're all in the meetup. They're gonna forgive me. Are you literally stopping the show for me to speak UK? This is America. We speak American here, not UK.
I'm sorry. What's your daughter's name? No, don't say it on it. Okay.
People know her name. Yes. London Calling. Here we go. 3, 2. Quentin Tarantino is being sued by the production company Miramax over his Pulp Fiction NFT plans. Yes, basically, so you understand, Quentin Tarantino decided to make some NFTs. He's been getting pitched on this for some amount of time. I saw online in an interview, somebody was explaining NFTs to him, and he kind of thought it was interesting. So he took 7 pages of the Pulp Fiction script and was going to make an NFT out of 7 pages that were left out, scenes that are not in the movie. What a clever, great idea. Now, the only problem is Miramax owns Pulp Fiction, and the way these contracts tend to work, having seen them up close when I worked at Sony Music or other media companies, you buy a piece of IP, intellectual property, like a movie or a song or an album or a piece of art or a comic book character or a comic book or a book. And in that contract, it says, we have the right to develop this in the future, in perpetuity, in all mediums, known and unknown in the future. In other words, if new mediums come out, we get to exploit this IP, and that's included in the price we paid you for it. So I'm assuming, I don't know this, that his contract, when they bought Pulp Fiction, they bought all rights to it, including sequels and this other stuff, which is why sometimes you'll see a director say, I have nothing to do with the Exorcist sequel. I have nothing to do with the Jaws sequels beyond number 2, whatever. I don't even know. Spielberg probably wasn't involved in even number 2. So the sequel rights is obviously a big thing. And then there's what's called derivative rights, things made like merchandise, and they're outlined in contracts, and you can negotiate that I get to keep the merchandise. In fact, George Lucas did that famously with Star Wars. That's why he became so rich, was because he used his money to pay for the creation of the Star Wars movies, but kept the merchandise rights, et cetera, et cetera. He wound up obviously selling all of that IP to Disney. And now Disney, if they want to sell NFTs, I don't think Lucas gets to sell his NFTs. However, this is untested law because there are a couple of issues here. Well, these are things Quentin Tarantino wrote, but did not sell, right? These were not sold as part of Pulp Fiction. They didn't buy the original script. If they did buy the original script, they certainly didn't buy the notes or pages around it, but they do own the title Pulp Fiction. So then you would make the argument, well, you're trafficking in our IP and using our IP to sell these things that are adjacent to it. Now, if he just took the 7 pages from the script and he sold them at an auction, I don't think that Miramax would care. But I think Miramax is owned by Disney, I believe. Somebody can fact check me on that. Therefore, Disney probably wants to put their foot down on this and say, wait, we got to stop this before, Stan Lee's estate or, somebody who drew Iron Man starts going in their drawers and says, listen, I got 100 copies of sketches I did of Iron Man. I'm going to start selling them. That is the problem here. Now, if you owned a copy of a comic book, if I owned a comic book and I cut each of the pages and I made, 60 pages of this graphic novel and I framed them and I sold them page by page, am I allowed to do that? Yes, I am. I bought that comic book. I chopped it up. But now if I make another work out of like a digital work, am I allowed to make a new story of it? Am I allowed to cut them up and make a montage and then play that into a film? Of course not, right? So these laws, when they hit new technologies, always get tested. It's not really a big deal. This happened with DVDs and CDs and streaming famously. And generally there's a negotiation if people feel like they're getting the raw end of the stick, because you want somebody to maybe participate. So the right way to do this, and what you'll eventually see here, is the director, Quentin Tarantino, will then go on to Disney, if Disney in fact owns Miramax. I believe they do. And they would cut a deal where Quentin would say, listen, I have this archive of all of this interesting stuff. I want an NFT. Do you have an preferred NFT platform? They're like, yeah, we do it with this company, or we started our own NFT platform. Great. So Quentin Tarantino's collection, Ridley Scott's collection of Blade Runner and Gladiator stuff in partnership with Disney would then sell them, right? So that's how this stuff tends to work out. And so according to the Wall Street Journal, Bart Williams, who is a partner at the law firm of ProScore and ProScore Rose, I think is how you pronounce it, on behalf of Miramax stated, quote, "It was profoundly disappointing to learn of this deliberate, premeditated, short-term money grab by the Tarantino team to unilaterally circumvent Miramax's rights to Pulp Fiction through the illicit development, promotion, and distribution of NFTs." So that's a pretty over-the-top statement. I don't know why they would be so aggressive about this. They, I'm assuming, went to Quentin Tarantino and said, like, hey, let's work something out first. But Tarantino probably told him to pound salt because maybe he doesn't, agree with them, or maybe he's got some past friction with them. And this is part of an overall negotiation. Remember, we saw something similar with none other than Dave Chappelle and the Chappelle Show. And he was like, hey, don't watch the Chappelle Show. They're screwing me out of money. And then I guess Comedy Central and Chappelle figured out a way to bury their beef, which is good because then Chappelle gets to work on this IP and support it in the future. In fact, when Howard Stern left terrestrial radio, part of him leaving and I think staying for an extra year or something, was when he negotiated his further contracts. He said, I want to own my tapes. I want all of my tapes for history to be owned by me, my masters, basically, not these other Westwood One or whoever he worked for previously. I'm not sure. And he actually owns his archive now. And I think with his deal with Sirius, he owns a company that then gives them the show, but he still retains his IP on all of that. So as you move up the stack, you can then reacquire your IP and use your current partnership as bait for that. So what Tarantino should do here is he should go to Miramax and say, listen, I want to have some ownership in my archive or something like that. Is there some deal we could cut here? But, there's really no reason for the movie studios to do that. So, he's only going to do one more of these. I don't see it as a money grab. I see it as an experiment, and maybe they should collaborate on it. Mr. Tarantino announced his plans earlier this month. A release through TarantinoNFTs.com promoting the auction says the artifacts will get a, quote, glimpse into the mind and creative process of Quentin Tarantino. The 7 unused scenes from the movie will also contain audio commentary, according to the release. Now, audio commentary he would be allowed to do. So if he wrote a book about his experience writing about the characters, that would be really hard for them to stop. So what he should do here is not call Pulp Fiction. It should be called the Tarantino Sessions. And he should just sell the Tarantino Sessions, where he talks about every character he's created in every movie. And that would be just his commentary like a novel. And I think they would have no leg to stand on. It's just his commentary on my inspiration for creating a character. If George Lucas made an NFT on where I came up with, the character Boba Fett and what was I thinking at that time, well, he could do that on an interview show, in a book, in a blog post. He could monetize it. I don't see how that would be illegal. When you start using the name Pulp Fiction, or you start using imagery from Pulp Fiction, which this does in a very clever way. They don't have the actors' faces on the website. They just have the iconic suit and a little bit of blood. And the font style evokes Pulp Fiction. And so I think that's probably what they are objecting to. Miramax alleges that Mr. Tarantino reserve rights were limited to the film's soundtrack, music publishing, live performance, print publication, comic books, and theatrical and television sequel and spin-off rights. So that's super fascinating that he owns the rights to theatrical and television sequel and spin-off rights. So an even easier thing for Tarantino to do here would be the further adventures of, name a Pulp Fiction character. Super easy. And that would be worth more. Or what happened to this person? So you do some sequel or whatever. Quote, Tarantino's limited reserved rights under the operative agreements are far too narrow for him to unilaterally produce, market, and sell Pulp Fiction NFTs, the suit says. I don't know if I agree with him, given that he owns the spinoff rights. So he could say these 7 pages, because these 7 pages contributed to the original Pulp Fiction, I think that's where he's getting himself in trouble. So he should just burn those NFTs, and he should just stick it to them by doing all of the spinoff rights. And then he could say, I had an original idea, but I changed it, and here's my new idea, right? Boom. So how are they going to stop him there? Miramax partnered with Mr. Tarantino on many of his movies, but none of the recent ones. I guess Jackie Brown and Kill Bill Volumes 1 and 2. Miramax was run famously by the Weinstein brothers. Here's the thing. There's a certain subset of rights, as I talked about. You can negotiate all kinds of things. But forward-looking stuff, it's very hard for people to control what you do in the future. If really Tarantino wants to get in on this crypto grift, there is a much easier way. And I had written about this with crowdfunding 20 years ago. I may have even talked about it on this podcast. I had the idea that if Quentin Tarantino, I think I wrote this in Silicon Valley Reporter at some point in a blog post, or maybe I wrote it on my own personal blog. If Quentin Tarantino were to say, I'm going to write 10 more movies. I'm going to write, produce, or make 10 more movies. Because he said he was going to do 10. And he's working on the last one now, and he wants it to be a slam dunk. And then I've heard him in these interviews he did recently. Shout out to Brian Koppelman's The Moment, Joe Rogan, and also Bret Easton Ellis. They did 3 really great, very long interviews with Tarantino, and it was fascinating. I would watch all 3 of those. Bret Easton Ellis is behind a paywall, very much worth paying for his podcast on Patreon. If you were to go out and say, I'm going to create a DAO, and the DAO is for me to make 10 more movies. I'm X years old now. I'm going to do 10 more. I said I was going to do 10, but I'm going to do 10 more. And I'm either going to produce them, write them, or direct them. Some combination of those. So no promises here, but I might hire a co-writer, write it with them and let them direct it. I might, have a story idea, whatever. And if you buy into these, I'll make them and we will put them into the public archives, or you will have some governance or voting in this. And I'll talk about this later in the show with the Constitution DAO, but he would have $100 million show up immediately because he's got that large of a fan base that wants to see him do this work. And if they had some upside in it where they got to be a producer, let's say anybody who did that got to have a frame in the movie at the end with, over $10,000, they get their own title card. If they're $1,000, they share it with 5 people. You could actually do a formula for that, right? Like 10,000 and above, you get your own title card, which, calls you something. If you're $1,000, you share it with 5. If you're $100, you share it with 100 people, whatever it is. Would be kind of cool. And then at the end, it might be 20 minutes of producer credits. How funny would that be? There were 20 minutes of producer credits that they had to run at the end of every film. And you could sit there and know when yours was going to come up. It'd be kind of fun. And he could do something like that. I think he would raise $100 million. I don't know. What do you think? All right. Congratulations to Quentin Tarantino on getting in on the amazing crypto grift right now. Sell those NFTs as quick as you can, because who knows how long there will be a line of bag holders out there who want to own JPEGs that have no function in the real world. I'm joking here, but if these NFTs actually had some IP associated with them, that would be cool. So I do think the Bored Ape Yacht Club allows you to have IP in your monkey, your ape. And so if the Bored Apes keep going at this pace, I could see somebody doing a cartoon or something of Bored Apes, or somebody making a Bored Apes, I don't know, DJ or t-shirts or merch. And maybe, who knows, if you bought it for $10,000 and you sold 10,000 t-shirts and made $1 on each, you could actually be profitable. So if the Bored Apes look at themselves like Marvel, who knows? Maybe there's like some crazy comic book world where 10 of the Bored Apes will get together and develop a series. Would you be allowed to do that? I think you own the IP. So could 10 people who own Bored Apes, like Jimmy Fallon owns one, Alexis Ohanian owns, Steph Curry owns one. If you got 10 of those people together, somebody email producers at thisweekinstartups.com or just mention me. Here's an idea. If you do in fact own the IP, 10 of you get together and make the Bored Apes Super Friends. You can call it that. Bored Apes Super Monkeys and Super Primates. Could you then sell that to, I don't know, the Cartoon Network and write your own scripts and make them have superpowers? And then somebody else could take 20 monkeys and do a comic book and call it something else and give them different superpowers and have a different storyline. I think you own the IP, so I think you could do that. That's where I think some of these things get interesting, is with the IP included. So NFTs are garbage. They're a total grift. It's a total scam. You're going to lose all your money in 99 out of 100 of these. But if there's IP associated with them and that IP becomes valuable, then I think there's something there. Okay, let's go to our next story.
I think we did cover the Universal Music Group Bored Apes, that they're pulling together 4 of them. I don't know if we actually read that story. We definitely wrote it.
To be a musician, to be a musical band.
Yeah. But
we did not
do
cover
have 2
that.
pickups.
Okay, good.
One would just be, I'm just going to copy what Rachel
There's already
put
been a
in there.
band called the Monkeys.
Yeah, there has been. They might sue.
I just put in twist taping, or I can put it at the bottom.
3, 2, and of course the Walt Disney Company did buy Miramax back in 2010.
But they've since sold it. They no longer own it.
3, 2. Of course, the Walt Disney Company did buy Miramax in 2010, but then they did sell it, and I think currently
1993. Sorry, Miramax was bought by Walt Disney in '93, owned until 2010, and then sold.
Got it.
They no longer own it.
Okay, so the Walt Disney Company owned Miramax from 93 to 2010. It got sold to a couple of different holding companies, and now it's owned by Viacom CBS.
Good.
Okay. And what else?
And
yeah.
If you just say the Constitution DAO, which we'll talk about tomorrow.
3, 2, according to Disney.fandom.com. All right. And we will talk about the Constitution DAO tomorrow. I have a lot of strong feelings on this one. Are they breaking securities law? Are they not? what's next, and will they win the auction? Well, we're going to tape right after the auction, so we'll be going live later tonight to talk about the auction, and we will have my reaction to the auction. Who knows if they win tomorrow?
Great, thank you.
Okay.
Let's
Any
do the
other
checklist.
stories for today?
I mean, I put together the Apple story, but I don't know. It's fine. We got the details. Maybe you could just cut straight to.
Do you have an opinion? You said it's fine, which is like sort of having an opinion. Why don't you state your opinion? I don't think we should cover this. I do think we should cover it. I strongly feel we should.
If you have strong feelings about it,
I know my feelings. I'm asking you yours. I know you're not used to having people care about your opinion, but you seem to have some reticence to the story. So give me your opinion.
My opinion.
Don't tell me like, what's your opinion? That's not helpful. What's your opinion? Have an opinion. Be thoughtful.
Okay. I'm gonna remove my first opinion. All right. My opinion is it's
boring. I have no opinion. It's fine. You can say I have no opinion.
No, Apple. It seems
super
like they've been able to
yeah.
settle a challenge, and they've got some big tasks ahead of them. Today they just announced that they're going, or somebody leaked that they're going to be building an electric car by 2025. So I think it's hard to do that if you're having an internal inviting. So I think this.
So you told me a bunch of aspects of the story. I'm not sure anybody understands your position. It's an important story. It's not an important story. It's an important story if you combine it with the leak of the electric vehicles. Is that what you're saying? Be concise in your opinion. Like, form an opinion. We should absolutely cover this because although this doesn't seem that important, they are increasingly having more leaks, which they never had under Steve Jobs, and the leak of the car today is related. And they obviously are trying to get around this.
I think it's important that Apple defines what their culture is going to be.
Got it.
In order for them to build
okay.
the world-leading products. But the story itself, I don't know.
I don't know.
Well, I mean, unless you are going to deliver it in an engaging way, I think
I know all that. You don't tell me what I know, Justin. What I'm trying to teach you here is you should have an opinion. You should fight for which stories you think we should cover, which you shouldn't. I don't need you to tell me my opinion. I don't need you to tell me if I do a good job on it and I'm passionate, it's going to come out well. I'm looking for you, and this is a problem with, I think, most people are trained to not share their opinions. As a producer, your job is to fight for the stories you want and to fight against the ones you think are inane. And that's what I'm looking for. You don't need to tell me what's my opinion on it.
I loved Chaos Monkeys, so I really liked Antonio's quote. So
what is Antonio's quote? What is that? Where's that from?
Antonio Garcia Martinez tweeted today.
No, I know that quote. What is the origin of that quote?
He later acknowledged it was a Spanish proverb, and some hunting on the internet says that it as well. And it's basically sit at the door of your house and you'll see the corpse of your enemy go by. So I think he was basically saying, if you're patient, you will.
Well, you're taking the Google Translate of that.
Yes, I went and I hunted down.
Oh, you did? Cool.
Other translation options.
It's pretty close.
It was pretty sparse. But yes, people said it's close.
Basically, it's like be patient. You don't need to go worry about your enemies. They'll eventually die.
Exactly.
They'll kill themselves, right? They'll if you have okay. If you're on the right side of history. Okay, great. So what episode are we releasing today with the Quinton news?
Justin Khan, which is a full hour plus conversation.
So we don't need another story.
We do not.
So I should upload this so they can edit that, and then we do the checklist on another QuickTime recording?
Yes. Okay, thank you, ENIAC78. I am glad you're excited by seeing how the sausage gets made.
Yeah, I mean, I'm being easy on you. I mean, the fact is I'm asking you to have an opinion, which most employers and bosses are like, shut up, don't tell me your opinion. I'm like, please give me a fucking opinion.
Okay, I can have more opinions.
Yeah, I mean, why not have an opinion? Yeah.
I think what that particular story boils down to is it's not that interesting, but it has a lot of jumping off points for us as a channel. There's
an opinion. See?
Yes.
Correct. Agreed. The story itself is like, okay, they had a rabble rouser who's allegedly leaking stuff, and obviously, like, really challenging to run a business if somebody's running around saying, everybody post your salaries in this spreadsheet so we can have chaos inside the company and bad feelings.
Yeah. 150,000
So,
employees.
okay, yeah, I can understand them not wanting that person there because of the leaks, alleged leaks, and this craziness and divisiveness. But they also need to have, they're a secretive company who likes to launch stuff on stage for the first time and can't keep leaking this bullshit.
Yes.
There's an interesting comment from Walton, superfan
Walton.
Yeah.
Yes.
J. Cal needs something to bounce off. That's that. Hopefully in January there will be.
Well, I mean, listen, I am bringing her in because she will have strong opinions because she's been at it for, 25 years. So yes, that is part of the reason to bring another person in, because this thing is getting so big, 5 days a week. And we probably will go 6 days a week next year. And I would like to be the first tech podcast that is 365 days a year. That is my new goal. So my goal was to get to weekly. We did that. I think this year was the year we got to weekly, right? 2021, or was it 2020?
Yes. No, this year, I think.
Yeah,
and then next year,
Shortly.
we hit 5 this year. And next year, I'd like to have This Week in Startups be a daily show. And it doesn't mean you have to listen to it every day, but like CNN or like, I don't know, Johnny Carson, it's on, well, he was on 5 days a week, but I don't know. I guess there's no other shows that are on 7 days a week, but I don't see why a podcast about technology startups can't be 7 days a week with all these amazing startups out there. We could do Saturdays for SaaS and Sundays for climate. Who knows? You could do all kinds of interesting things. And so I want to be 7 days a week. Yeah. I want to see if we can be 365 days a year, 4 producers, 2 editors, 2 hosts, and make this like CNN almost, right? And then if we get to 7 days a week, who's to say this live stream can't go for 3 hours a day? If the live stream is going for 3 hours a day and then you're making a podcast out of it for the next day, that could be like, nobody's ever done that. So we're kind of building like a mini version of CNBC, which I guess would be like Cheddar, and then on top of it, but not in a formal way. Like I think they copied CNBC, and what I'm doing is I'm copying like Nick's Fan TV and these other live streamers on this platform, which is you have a casual discussion like we're doing now. You take people behind the scenes, and it's more like the Howard Stern show or Nick's Fan TV or other stuff. But you have those moments of formality in it. Okay, we're doing an interview. Oh, at the top of the hour, we're going to be interviewing this person. So all interviews would be during the 3-hour live window. Like imagine that, Charles. How crazy would that be? If it works, assume we have the resources to do it. You could have 5 producers. You could have 3 technical producers. I mean, you could have 7 people doing it full time, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So now, do you want to do this checklist?
I mean, Leo
now?
did it with Twit, right? Yeah. I want to do the checklist now. Yeah. Why?
Okay, on this call, on this stream,
why would we do it? Of course, yes.
Because then I could go off and start editing while you do the checklist with the rest of the team. But that's cool. Let's do the checklist.
Oh, you're saying if I stop the stream?
Yeah, it's fine. It's no problem. It's all good.
Did you edit the Justin stuff all down yet or no?
Justin's cut. So we just need this new segment into it. And then.
So I could stop the stream and then restart it with the thing, or we could just do it privately, the checklist.
It's your call.
How far behind are we going to be if I do this checklist in 40 minutes? You'll be 40 minutes behind.
Oh, no. It's fine. It's only a 10-minute story. It'll be fine. I mean, no problem.
Okay.
What time are we?
All right. So
it's midday. We'll have it out and done.
Take more questions from the audience. Yes. The problem with taking questions from the audience is I always do that at the end, but I have to get some other things done on the show that are more formalized. So yes, I do like to do more. Okay, let's go to the checklist. You guys are going to have to listen in on the checklist. So I'm doing the 100-point checklist. I'll pull it up right now. This is episode 7, Operating Your Business. And so here are what I asked them to do, just for people who are watching or notice. Can you pull up the 15, the list, choose from these? And I'll do this interactive with the audience. So here's the list, everybody.
I'm going to pull it up. One moment.
And so these should be in the 70s. Do you have a low burn culture? Can you calculate your burn rate? So you're doing these all as questions. So that, but they're checklists. So they don't have to be a question, just, do you have a low burn culture? Great. Operationally important issue. Can you calculate your burn rate correctly? I would put the word correctly there. Can you calculate your runway? Those were kind of the same. So I would probably merge those. Have you made an org chart? Are you tracking expenses? I don't know what that means. Wait, where are the details for these? Oh, they're below. Okay. So I would combine burn rate and runway. Org chart, I'm not sure about. Do you have an org chart plan, I guess is the way I would. Are you guys making the edits as I do this? I just told you to make an edit. You didn't do it. Hello?
You just did org chart plan, right?
I'll put it in there.
I'm making the edits to the actual
Below.
ones below. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm trying to edit the ones up here so we can just talk to the audience and consolidate it in the one place. So can you calculate your burn rate and runway? That should be 1 because those are two sides of the same coin. Do you have an org chart and plan? Okay. Do you have a forward? The way I would say it is, do you have a forward-looking org chart? Do you understand the difference?
Yeah. Do you know who you need to hire
Yes.
to scale your company?
Correct. Yes. So do you know your org chart? It's like, yeah, of course I know my org chart. We're 7 people. Do you know what your org chart will look like when you're 30 people is really what we're talking about here, or should be. Are you tracking your expenses? What is that about? Like everybody tracks their expenses. I don't understand why that's important.
Well, sometimes startups would move fast, and they are.
Yeah, Ashley said that was
not
one of the
entering their
biggest things
receipts.
that we run into with early stage companies not tracking expenses. It's like a major red flag.
Okay, if it's a major red flag. Okay. Are you tracking? It's really a categorizing. Are you
Properly categorizing expenses?
are you tracking and properly categorizing? You're by default tracking them because they are all on your credit cards. It's really about properly categorizing them, But we could say tracking. I mean, I guess people could be putting all kinds of things. If you have feedback on any of these items, tell me as we go through them which item you think is good or how you punch them up. Are you maintaining your P&L and balance sheets? Are you doing a monthly, Do you explain what a P&L and a balance sheet is in the notes?
Yep.
Have you set your growth goals and modeled how much it will cost to achieve them? Okay. This is more, have you made a plan, growth plan, and resourced it properly? So the way you could do this also is you can make it active, make a growth plan and resource it properly. So it doesn't have to be a question in all cases. Sometimes saying it as a question is the right way to say it. Sometimes it's just like prescriptive. Make a growth plan and resource it properly. It's like an item on a checklist.
Got it.
Are you using cash-based or accrual-based accounting? I guess you forced all of these to be a question. It's really, you shouldn't
Use
be doing
accrual-based accounting.
Use accrual-based accounting.
Yeah, right.
Make sure you're using accrual-based accounting. Because the issue is not are you using one or the other, it's
Right.
why you should be using the latter one, right?
Right. Like you want to be a C Corp if you want to raise venture capital. It's like, that's
Yes.
the answer. There's no other answer. Gotcha.
See how I phrased it here? Make sure you're using accrual-based accounting, M-, not cash-based. Do you know what it means to be default alive? And you're forcing questions here. It's poorly done again. You can't force it into a question format. What's another way to say this?
Are
Yeah.
you default alive? And then you explain what being default alive is.
Mm-hmm. Are you default alive? And why that's so powerful. So meaningful.
I think I'm actually looking forward to this episode because I don't know what that means.
Huh? Do you know the difference between frugal and cheap? Again, with the questions, like you're forcing this. Establish a frugal but not cheap. Okay. I like the first 10. These next 4 we can leave off for now. Annual file deadlines is like a minor issue. State employment law is a minor issue. I mean, it's major if you get it wrong, but it's minor. Define your KPIs and to track for each role. That's a different thing. Read the lean startup. It's important, but yeah. Okay, I like the first 10. Let's just do those.
So the first 10 are actually 9 because we merged burn rate and runway.
Okay, so I have to pick
So-
one. Read the lean startup is a good one.
Okay.
Because it does relate to operations and operating. So and then you put operating your business with a low burn culture is not what the section should be, and I don't really care about. I think just these should be general operating best practices, operating efficiently, optimizing operations, optimizing operations. What's that word when two things kind of start with the same letter? It's not rhyming.
Alliteration.
Alliteration. Yeah.
Alliteration. It's an alliteration. So I noticed some like skills share we talked about the other day. Alliterations will fire off your neurons and then get saved in memory. Okay, let's do it.
Quick time. Is it running again, please?
It is. It's been running for 9 minutes.
Did you upload the other one?
Did.
Okay, great. Thank you. I haven't checked yet.
Oh,
I
so instead of checking, you just asked me. Okay. Pause. Why am I not logged in? Sign back in. Why did my Chrome? Okay. Yep, Qt NFTs is uploaded. And then I see there's an old folder, and I have access to that old. Who has access to that old folder?
It should only
Be
be
you, Rachel, Justin,
Got it.
and
Okay.
Charlie.
Great.
launch account.
Both of the folders in there, there's a transfer folder and an old folder. They are both locked just to the production group.
I only see twist remote guest audio. That's where the guests can get in there.
Yep,
And then
so
you
you
share
click on
that with
that.
people. And then when you share it with people, you have now shown everybody's email since they all have access to it. You didn't remove the access for Andy Radcliffe, Becky, Chamath, Charles, Elizabeth Ian. Did you notice that you didn't undo that?
For remote guest audio,
Yep.
when anyone opens that folder, it immediately says that we've shared it with them.
If you go to remote guest audio and you're in the drive, there's a little thing that says shared. When you click it, it shows everybody you've shared this folder with.
Gotcha.
Problem with that is you just gave everybody's email away. Some people may
Yep.
not want their emails, so you want to just remove their access to it. Also, they could come in here like Nicole Rose from Nikola Motor, who you've left on here as an editor. She could come in there and just download any document she wants because this is a private folder, right? Or is it
No,
open to
it's
the
a
world?
public folder open to anyone. But the two folders inside it, transfer and old, are both limited to just our team.
Right. So if somebody has this because they were on the show, they could load this up and just download files anytime they want, correct?
If the files were out there in the public on the remote guest folder, if they're in the old folder or the transfer folder, they cannot.
Got it. So the answer to my question is yes. Somebody could leave this folder open and download and snipe anything.
Yep.
That
I
gets
just
put in.
removed everyone it was shared with.
But it doesn't matter because it's open. So you now
Yeah, but
solve
now
the
people
problem of
can't
their
see email.
emails. So the question is, do we want to have a remote guest folder that doesn't change, that everybody has access to? And the answer is we probably don't want to have that. It's a liability. So what I would do is I would change that folder every 6 months or something in case somebody has access to it and they remember it and they click it and they go see there's files there and they download some file with a bunch of raw discussion on it.
Okay.
I do like the idea that it is a hidden URL, so it's not like it's. Anyone on the internet with this link can edit. Sign in is required, so they do have to sign in. So that's good.
Yep, they have to be signed into Google.
Yeah. So okay, but just make sure you remove it. So I see JasonShow.mp4 from David Benaham and Sam Lesson is still up there.
Where?
I'm in the same folder. I refreshed it. Okay, now it's
In
gone.
remote guest audio? No,
It's gone
there's
now.
nothing in there.
It just showed it to me. I don't know why, but it's gone now.
That's
Nope,
weird.
it's still showing it to me. That's so weird.
That is weird. Is it an old? Did your last? You just refreshed it. You said, right?
Yeah, I refreshed it. It disappeared. Yeah, okay. I don't know why it's doing that. It must have been
That's
something
weird.
cached. It must have been cached because I just refreshed it and went away. Okay, let's get started. We're ready.
Ready.
I think
Okay.
generally you're making these things too long too, by the way, the bullet points in them.
Okay.
All right, 3, 2. Okay, everybody, welcome back to This Week in Startups. Wait, is this going to have news in front of it? It's
Yes.
gonna have
Yes,
news.
we're
Okay, so then I
intending to have
shouldn't
the
be. This shouldn't be
Constitution
me
back.
introducing the show. So it should be me introducing the segment, correct?
Yep. This week on the startup checklist.
Got it. Okay, but I just introduced the show, so you got to correct me if I did the intro wrong. 3, 2. Okay, everybody. Next up on the show. So that's what I should be saying. So here you should be putting next up on the show should be my trigger in the openings for these, right? So either I'm opening the show or I'm opening the segment. So next on the show is what we should always put. Looking for a confirmation that people understand that.
Next on the show is what we'll do for guest intros and segments.
If it's next on the show, if it's not the start of the show. So top of the
Yeah.
show, I need to do a show intro. All right, got it. Okay, 3, 2. All right, next up on the show, we're going to continue our startup checklist. We've been doing this now for about 6 weeks, and you can see all of these items at thisweekinstartups.com/checklist. Like the Startup Basics series, I created this series because I wanted to have all of the blind spots, all of the obvious and sometimes not obvious issues you're going to face as a startup founder, just in a checklist somewhere where you can go down it and check off that you understand this point. Now, if you're a serial founder, you're going to look at these 100 points and say, J-Cal, duh. Because you don't remember what it was like year one as a founder. If you're a year one founder, I'm going to guess, and you can tell me at producers at thisweekinstartups.com, how many of these you had done or already know in your first year. Maybe you know 20 or 30 or 40 of them is my guess after your first year. And then in your second year or your second startup, you get up to 60 or 70, which means, if you've done it 3 or 4 times, maybe you're at 80 or 90 and all these things are going to get done. And maybe there's 10 or 20% of the list, 10 or 20 checklist items that you maybe didn't think of or consider this time around when you started. In other words, this is worthwhile for anybody to go through, even me. Because I went through this and I'm looking at the ones I'm talking about and I'm like, oh, I got to take care of that at Insight. Oh, I got to take care of that at launch. And that's what checklists are about. There's a great book called The Checklist Manifesto that Jack Dorsey from Square and Twitter fame turned me on to as a way to create operational excellence. And I think he's achieved that at Square a long time ago. And I think he figured it out at Twitter, which you can see in their product velocity. What is a checklist? And what's the history of these? Well, according to the book, these checklists in modern society really helped surgeons and pilots and other people not make mistakes. And so you can incorporate a checklist into your life. Hey, before we go skiing, we need to make sure we've got an extra set of gloves. Everybody's goggles work. Everybody's got their ski passes. You do that checklist in your mind before you get out on the mountain. Oh, do we have a protein bar? Do we have lip balm? What do we need to have? Do we have $20 to go in cash to go get some hot cocoa? You want to make sure you have all that stuff ready to go. And so that's what a checklist does. It reduces mistakes, increases performance. It also has a function of reducing anxiety and making you feel more confident. And that's what I love about them. Our producers here on This Week in Startups, as one example, have a checklist before a guest comes on the show. They have a checklist when we start our live streams on YouTube. We have a checklist after we publish the episode of what we do on social media. Okay, did we share this on Instagram? Did we share it on TikTok? Share it on Twitter? Did we make a LinkedIn post, etc.? All of these important things. Did we let the person who was on the show know that the show is published and here are the clips to it? Once we had checklists, we found anxiety went down, performance went up, and that's what it's all about. Now, do you need to create a checklist for everything in your life? I don't know if you do, but I do know that since I started doing it, I feel like everything's more in control. I feel like people do a better job at their job. And I think everybody wants to do a good job at work. So if you look at pilots, and I've watched pilots, a lot of my friends are pilots, hey, are the flaps at 10%? Flaps 10%. They repeat it back, call and repeat, right, back and forth. Okay, did we tweet this? Yes, we tweeted it, but not the pilots. I'm talking about my producers. And this is a really great system for keeping planes from falling out of the air. And when they have a problem, they pull out the checklist. Okay, here's the checklist for one engine out. Okay, right. Turn the engine off, restart the engine. Okay, check the RPMs, check the oil pressure, check the oil. And they go back and forth, and they have dual sets of gauges. They're checking both sets of gauges. They're going back and forth. Man, the power of a checklist in a really frightening situation, like a plane, is really important. And that's why they say aviate, navigate, communicate, I think is their alliteration for keeping the plane there. You got a problem, you got to aviate. Make sure the wings are level, make sure you have speed, make sure you know your height, all that stuff. Okay, navigate. Okay, where's the nearest airport? Okay, and then communicate. Okay, let the ground know you got an engine out and you're going to land. This is very important. ABC, airway, breathing, circulation. When I was on an ambulance, that's what they taught us. I don't know if that's changed. Airway, tilt the person's head back is what we were taught at the time. I don't know. I haven't been an EMT for a while, but make sure you check that airway, breathe. You feel the air coming out. Do you hear it? Okay, the airway is good. Okay. Breathing. Okay. Do you hear the breathing? Okay. Circulation. Let's make sure the blood's pumping. Airway, breathing, circulation. They just pounded that into us. Somebody check if it's changed, but airway, breathing, circulation in nursing. I think some people used to say airway, breathing, compressions, but I think that's not correct. I think that might be a mistake, but I'm going to read from the NIH, Initial Assessment and Treatment. The airway, breathing, circulation, disability exposure approach is a systematic approach to immediate assessment and treatment of critically ill or injured patients. The approach is applicable in all clinical emergencies. That's why I like to create these kind of alliterations. I didn't actually know disability exposure. That's kind of cool as well. So anyway, let's go into our checklist for today. Again, you can check all these checklists at thisweekinstartups.com/checklist. And I'm doing this as much for you as for me. You can take this checklist and you can edit it. You can write a blog post about it. You can remix it if you want to make a PDF out of it for us. All I ask is that you put that link in, take it from This Week in Startups by Jay Cal and his team, thisweekinstartups.com/checklist. So if you want to make a PDF, just don't do anything non-commercial, please. But if you want to remix this or rethink it or change it, or say what you think is wrong or better about it, let's make it a living doc. Put your comments in, thisweekinstartups.com/checklist. Okay, item number 1 for today, because we're going to talk about operational excellence, optimizing your operations is today's theme. So number 1, which is number 61 in our overall checklist. So 61 on our checklist, number 1 for today. Do you have a low burn culture? I want you to ask yourself that question, because as a founder, you set the tone for everything in your company, especially how you spend money, and you typically have more to do than other companies because you're trying to create something new in the world and you have less resources. That means you have to have a low burn culture. So you don't want to have excessive spending. You want to spend intelligently. This means when you hire somebody and they say, hey, listen, Google and Facebook are offering me X plus Y and Z. Your response is, we can offer you 50% of X, and there's no way we can offer you Y and Z, but we will offer you A, B, and C. The ability to direct what you're doing here, be part of something exciting, not soul crushing, like optimizing an ad network at Facebook or working for our dystopian future in the metaverse. And C, you're going to get stock options, which will in all likelihood be worth 0, but could be worth a lot more than 0 if we all figure this out and we're in it together. So essentially what you're saying is, no, we're not going to compete with that. And you don't want anybody who wants you to compete with that. And if they say, hey, I'm getting 18 weeks off and I'm getting RSUs and I'm getting, my car paid for, whatever nonsense it is, I'm getting severance. You just say, yeah, we can't compete with that. Sorry, no. And then once you've set that expectation, then you're going to want to really negotiate things hard. So every time you have a vendor, you want to negotiate. If you got a lawyer, you can say, hey, can you do our legal work at this flat rate? Can you do our fundraising at a max of $20,000? You'd be surprised how many lawyers will actually agree to cap their fees or will negotiate their fees, or accountants, to keep you in business and support you in the early days. So don't be afraid to ask for a discount or to ask for a cap on services. You don't need to get fancy office space. Obviously, we know in pandemic, you can build just as easily. We would do our meetings at, a burger joint, or we would, Brian Alvey and I and Peter Rojas and Ryan Block and Sean Gold, when we got together to do Weblogs Inc., we were in cafes, doing stuff for free. You don't need to waste your money on swag or things that you see big companies doing. Everything goes into the product. Everything goes into sales and growth. And you really try to scale your startup intelligently. And on episode 934 in our Scaling Your Startup series, which is about something different than the checklist, that was about growth, we did talk about low burn culture, and you can double click on that if you want to. Now, related to this, item 62 on our checklist of 100 items, can you calculate your burn rate and runway? Can you calculate your burn rate and runway? So first, you need to know your revenue. In some cases, it's going to be zero. So let's say in year one, you're going to have no revenue. You're just going to be building product, building team, and getting some beta customers and unpaid trials, which I never really think you should do. I think you should always do paid trials, but let's just say it's an ad-based business and you decided for year one, you'll spend 6 months building it, 6 months having free users, and in year two, you'll address paid. Well, if you spend $100,000 a month, your burn is $100,000. Now, if you were to, in month 13, have $10,000 in advertising revenue and it grew 50% a month and you got to 15K and then you got to 22.5, et cetera, and your spend stayed the same, you're going to have 100 minus 10K, 90K burn. The next month, let's say you bring in 15K in revenue, 100K steady state burn. That's all your salaries, legal expenses, et cetera. Minus the 15K, 85 in burn. Okay, next month you did, let's say 25. Now you're at 75K in burn. Whatever you spent minus what you made, there's whatever that net is, that is your burn rate. Sometimes I'll have people calculate their burn rate as their entire spend. They just don't understand this calculation. It's what's going out of the business every month. It's basically a way of saying your loss. And burning cash means you're losing money. Another way of framing losing money is investing in your business, which is what we're doing here in Silicon Valley. We're saying instead of you bootstrapping the business and spending what you make, we'll accelerate your growth. We'll trust you to spend some money intelligently, and we'll take the risk that, hey, maybe the revenue never shows up and this thing goes out of business or gets sold in a fire sale. But you do need to know how to calculate it. Once you have your burn rate, what you can do is you can look at how much did you lose in the last 3 months, and you could average it. So in the example I gave, for the 13th, 14th, 15th month, in your second year with the advertising, we had 10K in revenue, 15K in revenue, and 25K in revenue. If you add those three numbers together, 25 plus 15 is 40, and then 10 is 50, you got 50K, and you spent 300. So in the first quarter, you spent 300,000, you made 50. That means you burn 250. If you divide 250 by 3, you're basically burning 83,000. I'm sorry, 83 times 3. Yes, 83,000 a month. 83 point whatever 3. So your average burn was 83. If you don't think you're going to grow revenue in the next 9 months, you could say, hey, 83 times 12, and you get an idea of what you're going to spend for the year. In that case, it would be roughly $1 million is what you're going to burn for the year. Why is it important to know this? Well, then you can take your burn rate and you can look at your cash in the bank, and you can do it very simple. I'm going to divide our $830,000 in the bank by $83,000 in burn a month. Okay, I've got 10 months of runway. Okay, if you had 1.7 million in the bank, okay, now you got 20 months of runway. Very easy calculation, super easy to do. You should know this as the founder, and you should be looking at not just your accounting, but also the cash balance. Because sometimes you'll have one-time expenses. You won't take that into account. You had to pay off a $50K legal bill, whatever, some big, you bought 10 laptops. You understand. This is why people like to spread out their spend over time, and they like to be very cautious about this. So understand your burn, and what your real goal is, I think, is to have 18 to 24 months of runway in the bank at all times. I think that is the best way to run a company in the early stages. Why? Sounds too conservative? Because it means you have at least a year to be heads down and not worry about money. You can go 12 months, iterate 2 or 3 times, figure it out, not be able to, you'll be able to sleep at night, maybe not chew your teeth and grind them down to nubs. And then, you'll be watching this, and maybe you say, you know what, we got enough traction here. I'm going to start raising in month 13. I'll need 6 months to raise the next round. Or you can say, God, nothing's working. I need to meet with my board in month 7, 8, 9 and get some idea of a pivot here or what I should do. And really, it's like in the case of a pilot, understanding your altitude and your speed and just knowing, hey, my descent is X and my speed is Y, my altitude is Z, I can get to a runway. Oh, I'm low. I just took off and I lost both engines like Sully. Okay, I'm not making it to Teterboro. I'm not making it to JFK. That's not happening. I'm going in the Hudson. Remember that phone? You remember that live call? You can insert that here. We're going to be in the Hudson. It was an incredible moment. What a hero. Sometimes you need to ditch, and the equivalent in a startup is you shut the company down, and you're going to return the money if you have money left, or you're just going to make sure everybody gets a soft landing and gets off the plane, and the plane's going to sink and be totaled. That's not what you're trying to do in that situation. You're just trying to get everybody off the plane safely. It's not life and death, but it is nice to close things up cleanly so that you can go start another company. Okay, 63. Do you have a forward-looking org chart? What does it mean, forward-looking org chart? Well, I just made that up. We all know what an org chart is. Okay, there's 2 founders, and we've got 2 developers under one founder, and we've got a sales and a marketing person and operations founder under the other founder. One person's building the product, other person's building the business. Great, easy org chart. All right, what does it look like in year 2? What does it look like in year 3? Let's have a 2-year org chart. We're 7 people. What did I say? 5, 6, 7? Yeah, 7 people now. We're going to wind up at 35 after 18 months. Okay, how does that fill in? Okay, we're going to have a director of sales who has 3 sales executives and 2 SDRs under them. Okay, we're going to have a CTO, or the founder is going to be the CTO, and we're going to give them that title. And she's going to have under her 4 developers, and they're going to have under them 2 there's going to be a project manager and a designer also reporting in for those 6 people. All right, operations. We don't need a COO yet. So we're just going to have a director of operations, and the director of operations is going to manage our outsourced accounting, outsourced HR. But in year 3, we want to bring accounting and HR in, or want to bring HR in year 3. You get the idea. What this does is it signals to the organization how things are going to play out and what milestones you need to hit in order to add that person. And then you'll also be able to say, hey, here's the expense associated with that. And there are tools out there to build org charts and to even do this time-stamped org chart type situation. So, definitely look into those. Just taking a pause here. There was a sponsor on This Week in Startups at one point who did that software. I'm blanking on their name. Do you remember, Nick?
I don't, but
really
I
cool.
remember the company for sure. Yeah, look it up real quick.
Look it up real quick because I want to give them a shout out.
I was thinking about putting them on there, but then I was like, I didn't know if you wanted to do any special shout outs to advertisers on this.
I think, just only because it was the best tool I've ever seen, and I know people using it. So
yeah, hold on.
I'll add that in. Okay, 3, 2. So what's important here in an org chart is not just who reports into who, but who's responsible for each project. So org charts are kind of like old school concept of like the hierarchy. Put that aside for a second, and then you can make a similar chart, which would just be for who's in charge of a product ultimately. And so if you read the Amazon book, or you have an idea of Amazon's culture or Google's, this concept of a single threaded leader, STL, on new projects, somebody has to be accountable for any new initiative. So just think about new initiatives. When we did the This Week in Startups meetups, I said, Rachel, you're doing a great job. You're in charge of this. Now, everybody in the organization knows who's in charge. So if they have a question, they go to her. And she knows she's in charge. So she won't say, I didn't know I was responsible for that. It's like, no, you're responsible for it. So one of the things we're dealing with right now in this meetup program is, okay, what's the content? And can the local meetup people have sponsors? Are they going to make this into a business, or should it just be to cover costs? And so when those questions come up, Rachel knows that she has to get an answer for those questions and get it to the people who are coordinating the, 15 local meetups we're doing. When we have something like the SaaS Syndicate, we just launched a new syndicate at thesyndicate.com, just focused on SaaS. I thought it was important to put one person in charge of it and give them a clear instruction. In 2022, want to do 2 deals a month consistently, 25 deals a year. Every other week, we share a deal with the SaaS Syndicate. Very simple, single-threaded leader with a clear KPI, just a clear goal of who's responsible for this project. Okay, item number 64.
Wait, hold on. Sorry. ChartHop was the company.
Okay, ChartHop. Do you have the URL?
ChartHop. Yep, charthop.com/twist gets $600 in credits by signing up today.
Charthop.
I don't know if the offer still stands. The last ad we
Don't
did
worry
for
about
them
it. As
was
long
in
as the page
December,
is
but-
up. 3, 2. Okay. And by the way, there's a really cool piece of software that a lot of people use for this. It's called charthop.com. You can go to charthop.com/twist because they previously sponsored this podcast and get like a $600 credit, I think. So I think the page is still up. So check out ChartHop. It like lets you play your org chart. It's really brilliant. So make sure you have an org chart. And by the way, we didn't include this in the checklist because they were a sponsor previously. We happen to have the best sponsors on this podcast. So sue me for having the best sponsors and the best content for founders. It actually kind of works when you think about it. Like the only people who really should sponsor this podcast are people who are in the startup high growth space. And if you're not, why would you be here? It's just like for people who invest in startups and people who build startups and who love tech. So when people sponsor the program who are not in that group, I'm very thankful, but I'm also like, make sure it works for you. Then again, we've kept the ads the same price for like 4 years. That was my other secret to this podcast. I was like, just sell the pod out, make it ridiculous value. So we didn't change the price of the ads over the last 3 or 4 years. They were used to be 3,000, then 4,000, now 5,000. But I don't think we could charge 7,500 and probably do just as well. But I was like, just sell people a lot of them. Let LinkedIn or OurCrowd or NetSuite or whoever it is buy a whole bunch of these, and we'll have their support for the year, right? I think it's kind of cool that you have the same advertisers for the entire year. Okay. Item 64 on the checklist. Are you tracking and properly categorizing your expenses? This is super important because eventually you're going to get funded, you're going to get audited, you're going to do due diligence, you're going to have to submit to a board of directors your P&Ls, your books. And let's say you're spending money on stuff and you're commingling on your corporate card, your personal expenses and paying them back, or you're just not categorizing properly where expenses are in your books and you do all this wrong. Oh my Lord, you don't understand your business. You look like an amateur and it could wind up slowing down a future fundraising. So you really want to understand every single tool your team's using. You want to get one of these fancy credit cards where you can give each member of the team a credit card, but you can turn them off in a web interface. So you can give people, you could have one credit card just for professional subscriptions, one for SaaS software. You could turn both down from $1,000 a month to $100 a month and then have all of your services get rejected. And trust me, if you reject a SaaS software or a subscription, you're going to get 20 emails about it. And then the person who's the leader may not even be at the company and they were paying for some SaaS software or for some, newsletter. And then nobody was even knew they were still paying and they get charged for the entire year up front because they wanted to get the discount when they were here and they thought that was a good idea. Boom. And now you're burning money, which you got to be frugal. We talked about that earlier. So track your expenses, use one of these new powerful cards. There's like a dozen of these companies out there. I won't mention specific ones, or make sure your QuickBooks and your accounting is just tight and you have all the different categories and you're assigning your expenses and your people properly. Have a professional bank account. I know it's so stupid and people who are watching this are like, do you really have to say that? I mean, I've seen people operate out of personal bank accounts and personal credit cards or vice versa, or not give themselves a salary and pay for their apartment out of their corporate account and say, well, I work from home and people come over sometimes for meetings. And that gets you into all kinds of trouble with the IRS and makes you look like an amateur. So keep your books tight, which then leads to item 65, which is, are you doing a monthly P&L and do you have like a clean balance sheet? If you want to understand a balance sheet, it's pretty simple. You have all your assets. If you were making things like, iPhones or a watch or something, those could be assets. If you own some fabrication machine or a factory, those could be assets. Then you have liabilities, you took loans, et cetera. And then you have shareholder equity. And it basically gives you an idea of what's in the company and what the value of the company is. And then profit and loss is more important. Basically, this takes all of your revenue, your costs, and your expenses during a specific period of time, a month, a quarter, the year. And then it puts them into categories. So you could have your marketing spend, you could have your discounts, you could have your cost of building the product. Like if it's a hardware product, you could have your staffing costs, you could have your operational costs, travel, entertainment, all that stuff. It gives you a nice snapshot of the business. And so you could have a plan that's in a Google sheet, which is your plan and how much money you plan on making and your customer acquisition cost and staffing. But the P&L is what the accountants create. And so you can take those two things and kind of put them up to the light and, kind of put one behind the other. Okay, what do your books say? What's reality? And what did your plan say? And you can then hopefully see the delta, the difference between those two. And when you start having board meetings, you'll be attaching these. People will be looking at them. They'll be looking for things that are wrong, looking for things that are not nominal, things that are not normal. It comes up in diligence. You want to get the stuff right. And I tell you, it probably takes you 100 hours as an executive to get good at this stuff and to get into a rhythm. Well worth you doing, because then when you get to fundraising, I think it might increase your chances 5 or 10% if these things are right. Now, I'm not saying people are going to invest in a company just because their P&L and their books are tight and everything's perfect. But I do see like 5 or 10% of people maybe don't get funded because this stuff is a mess. 1 out of 10, 1 out of 20, things are messy. And then a VC is just like, I don't want to deal with this, or, come back after you've cleaned it up. So it could delay a financing, or you just come across as less credible because you can't keep your stuff tight. It would be a similar thing that could happen in legal, where you don't have IP assignments or an employee stock option or vesting schedules, where you gave 30% of the company to some fakaka, crazy, predatory consulting firm / accelerator that charged you to build your app and then took 30% on top of it to maintain your app. I do see those things. It's crazy. Checklist item number 66, make a growth plan and resource it properly. People who make plans to grow have a much greater chance of growing than people who don't make a growth plan. Startups are intended to grow. If they are not growing at a brisk, consistent, vibrant pace, they are dying. That's basically how the venture community and public markets eventually look at these things. You're either growing or you're dying. If you're going sideways, you're not growing, you're dying. Maybe you're in it to fight another day. Great, you're default alive. But we're really looking for growth. And when you're starting, you're telling a story about future growth. When you start actually ringing the register and have users signing up, now you're selling performance. So you have to know, hey, am I selling the promise of my company or the performance of my company? In the early days, you're generally selling the promise, but at some point you get to $1 million in revenue, and now they're going to be looking at the performance as well as the potential and promise of your business. And you can make in your plan a 5%, a 10%, a 20% month over month growth plan. And I suggest you do that. And then you should look at what compounding growth does to a company that's making 100,000 in year one versus, and then 5% compounded growth, 10% compounded growth, and 20% if you're making but 10K a month. These are radically different scenarios, right? Adding $500 a month versus $2,000 doesn't seem like a lot, but go ahead and do compounding and you'll see why compounding interest rates, and people will fight for 1 point or 50 basis points or 25 basis points on a mortgage. There's a reason. Compounding interest rates, compounded growth rates really do work. And you got to ask yourself when you make these plans, well, if I'm trying to grow 20%, where's that 20% growth going to come from? Okay, 25% of the 20% of growth is going to come from landing and expanding. Okay, that means we have to have great customer success, great customer support so that people will add people. And are we asking people if they want to add people? And do we have that set up? Okay, well, if we're going to resource that, we're resourcing one group of people. Oh, we want to get 75% from new customers this year. Okay, 75% from new customers means we need more salespeople. Okay, and the salespeople need more leads. And the salespeople turn over quicker than regular people in the company. So we're going to need, for every 2 salespeople we want to have online, we're going to need to hire 3 because 1 out of 3 are going to leave voluntarily or involuntarily. So make a plan and then benchmark yourself against the plan, and you will be delighted to see how well things go for you. And again, just like this checklist helps reduce anxiety and keeps people focused, so does a plan. Okay, startups should always use accrual-based accounting, and that's item number 67 here. Make sure you're using accrual-based accounting, not cash-based. Just like some people will start a venture-backed startup and make it an LLC and then have to change it to a C Corp. Some people start with cash-based accounting. They sell somebody a 2-year contract. They book $100,000 in November. Then they have somebody on a monthly contract in November. Instead of selling them $100,000 over, 2 years in advance, they're just taking $2,500 a month right now, and that's coming in on a cash basis. So you basically are confusing everybody as to what's going on. Have a great accountant or have a good accountant, but have an accountant and get to accrual-based accounting so that you're booking your revenue when you actually delivered the service. That's what it means. If somebody buys a year-long membership to a gym, the gym doesn't take all that money in January. They spread out the $1,200, $100 a month, right? And you book $100 every month. And the same thing is true for expenses. You can then spread out expenses. If you had to buy, I don't know, a forklift or a tractor at a farm and you're leasing it, well, you're paying every month that lease. But if you didn't lease it and you paid cash for it, well, you could say, well, the life of this, $120,000 tractor is going to be 24 months, and then we're going to sell it and get half our money back. Therefore, 60K over 24 months equals this amount of money, and we'll spread out those costs. And you can talk to your accountants about how to do that legitimately. And it gives you just a more crisp view of the business, and it builds your credibility, doesn't it? Okay.
If you're using cash-based accounting, does that immediately eliminate you from raising venture capital?
So often people ask me if you're using cash-based accounting, if that eliminates you from raising venture capital. No, but they might say, fix this and then we'll fund. So it might delay your fundraising. If you're printing money and your accounting's a mess, it will typically delay financing. And that's the big problem. If you're kind of meandering and you're not high growth and you have cash-based accounting, those two things combined might lower your credibility so much that the VC just invests in somebody who's got tighter books and a tighter snapshot of the business. When you're doing cash-based accounting, really the problem becomes you don't understand the business. And we really want to understand the business. And if you can't understand the business in a crisp, clean way, can't explain it, and you got all those cash problems because you paid your legal bill that comes up every 9 months and you were behind a year, and you paid $75,000 this month, and we don't know what's happening with the business because it's so spiky. That's a big problem for investors. So I really think that that's the problem, is your credibility and the ability to tell your story and understand the reality of the business. 68 on our checklist. Are you default alive, and why is that so meaningful? Paul Graham wrote this in a 2015 essay. He wrote some great essays about startups. Really just the master of focusing on what's essential in a startup. And then that comes from investing in, he probably did the first 1,000 investments or so in Y Combinator. And default alive basically means you're at break even or even profitable, and you've got unlimited runway. You don't need to raise any more money. And it puts you in the driver's seat of a founder for many reasons. You only need to raise money if you want to, and if the terms are great. So in September of 2019, I coined the term the Pegasus startup in a blog post. And quote, I'm quoting myself, it's a little obnoxious. A Pegasus startup is one that is so profitable that is able to use its profits to soar so high that it skips multiple rounds of funding. And I've got a couple of these in my portfolio. Calm and Fitbot are the two best examples. They're both subscription-based consumer businesses. Interesting, a trend there. And what it basically means is, you don't do these dilutive rounds. So if you skip a 20% dilution round 2 or 3 times, my Lord, you might have twice as much equity in the company. And that's meaningful. And building off profits and being efficient, having low burn culture, that means that those kind of companies, when people come to raise money and they say, oh, well, we want to have 2 board seats, or we want this ratchet, or we want these terms, or we want to buy 25%, you can say, I'm only selling 5%, take it or leave it. I think Notion was the other Pegasus company. They just skipped multiple rounds of funding as well. So congratulations.
Yeah, they raised $50 million on a $2 billion valuation from Index. Sarah Cannon did that round, I think.
Yeah. And so shout out to Sarah Cannon for doing the Notion round. I think they just raised at $1 billion, like 50 million or something, or 2 billion. And they skipped all these, highly dilutive early rounds. And I'm saying that as an early stage investor. And the reason I can say that with confidence is, listen, if I only own 5% of the business or 7% of the business, I really want to own 15, but you don't dilute me 50% in the future rounds. Well, I'm kind of in the same place, aren't I? Because the company's worth more. Yeah, I would have liked to own a higher percentage, but it is what it is, right? And actually, it offered the Fitbod team multiple times to invest. They said no to me. We don't need the money, Jake Al. We love you. We don't need the money. And then finally, I got them to accept a couple $1 million at higher and higher valuations, and was able to put a little more money to work. But I'm just happy to be in business with them, and I love an efficient company and a founder. Default dead. It's pretty obvious. Like, you're not making money. You haven't hit your milestones. You have no more cash, or you're running quickly out of cash. Nobody wants to invest in you. You're kind of going to be default dead. You're what we call in the business a zombie. And so this is why growth is so important. And at some point, you need to know when to wrap it up and just throw in the towel. Concede this match. You see it with chess players. You'll see it in poker. Somebody folds a hand. They had a great hand on the flop, but it got really bad on the river in the turn, and they fold. They could be getting bluffed. They could be a mistake, but whatever. You'll live to fight another day, play another chess match. Sometimes you take the starters out and you throw in the bench, or you throw in the, developing prospects because you're down 30 and you just want to rest your team, and, you don't play the fourth quarter. It happens. And so, it's important to know where you're at and be candid with yourself. Okay. Number 69 on our very special 100 list: establish a frugal but not cheap culture. And know the difference between those. If you're going to lose an employee because you're being cheap with the employee and you, I don't know, don't pay for, something that's important to them. They wanted a new laptop because it makes them 25% more efficient, or they asked for a couple of days off and extra days off a year and you didn't do it, and it was super important to them. Well, that's dumb. That's being cheap. Being frugal is, hey, listen, we're going on a business trip. I want everybody to, if you know somebody in the city and you could stay with them, great. If you got family, please stay with them. Hey, we're going to be flying, to Australia, and we're going to be in coach. That's just the nature of it. If you want to come, you come. If you don't, you don't. But we can't fly everybody out in $10,000 seats. So, if you want to come, come. That's literally what happened with our company. I was like, hey, if you want to come, come. If you need to be in business or first class, you can pay for it like I do. But if you don't, you don't. So be super generous where you can, and where you can is equity, right? Or where you can is, responsibility in a company. But know that every dollar that you waste could have been put towards something productive. So just be frugal. It's so critical to start early. Fancy office spaces like daily catered lunches, massages, snacks, all this stuff. It can get crazy, and it really is a sign, if you're wasting money and you're blowing through it, that you really shouldn't be in charge of the company. And Adam Newman is probably the ultimate example of that. $60 million private jet, while WeWork is losing billions of dollars and people are questioning their model, and he's smoking cannabis on a plane. I don't have a problem with smoking cannabis, but smoking cannabis on a plane and the pilot's getting high who are trying to transport you. Like, this is just such bad character, and credibility destructive for the organization that you started, your brand, your personal brand, that guy had to go, right? Okay, number 70 on our list. Have you read The Lean Startup? Do you understand this concept of the lean startup? And that was published by author Eric Ries. He was on the program, episode 199 and episode 1041. And it basically says, you're going to take the scientific method. You're going to spend the least amount of money as possible in order to get the answer to your question. So if you are wondering if people will, I don't know, join a SaaS syndicate, well, you can put up a landing page for a SaaS syndicate and do it in 10 seconds, or you do a remote demo day. I can put up a Squarespace website, see if anybody applies. Cost me $20 a month or close to nothing. I don't need to build out a bunch of infrastructure, build a bunch of software to know if that's going to work. Do it with the least amount of work possible. Be the laziest possible to get the answer to the question. That's the whole concept of an MVP, a minimum viable product, is you build the least amount and you spend the least amount to get the most knowledge. And then you can iterate from there. The book mentions a methodology developed by Toyota called the 5 Whys. Eric Ries was mentioned in an article with the Harvard Business. So here's a quote.
You wrote the article.
Eric Ries wrote an article for the Harvard Business Review, and I'll just read his quote. Number 1, a new release broke a key feature for customers. Why? Because a particular server failed. Okay, why did the server fail? Because an obscure subsystem was used in the wrong way. Okay, why was it used in the wrong way? The engineer who used it didn't know how to use it properly. Why didn't he know how to use it properly? Well, because he was never trained. Why wasn't he trained? Because his manager doesn't believe in training new engineers because they are too busy. So Ries argues that to build a great company, you should start with the customer in the form of interviews and research discovery. That's obvious. You really need to understand your customers. And then building an MVP is great. But asking these whys over and over again, why did that happen? Why did it happen? Really getting to the core of it is critically important. So this has been the next 10 items on the checklist. You can read the checklist at thisweekinstartups.com/checklist. If you want to see our Startup Basics series, dovetails nicely with this, does some deep dives into accounting and legal. That's at thisweekinstartups.com/basics. And then again at the website, thisweekinstartups.com/meetups, if you want to talk about these issues with other founders. I think going through the startup checklist with a group of founders might make for a nice offsite. So maybe the meetup folks for a meetup want to do, groups of I don't know, 6 or 8 to go through the checklist together. Maybe 6 is a good number. And you sit around a table with 6 of you and go through the checklist and talk about your experiences. That could be fun. You can spend a whole day doing it, right? Cater lunch, have dinner afterwards. All right, next up on the program, I am super excited about the first collaboration we've done. We use this Restream software, which is really good to...
This is an intro, Jason, not next up.
Well, what about...
So this is an intro for today's show.
Oh, intro
You're
for
doing the
today's show.
for
Okay.
Justin Con.
Three... Wait. This has nothing to do with the startup checklist.
No,
Startup checklist,
just wrote
I
an
just
intro
end
for
the... But the startup checklist, I just end the show.
It ends the show. Yep.
Okay. Did I end the show properly? How was it?
Yes, you
Yeah.
did. You just kind of said this is
Actually,
like
the
10
startup
points,
checklist is not
and-
going to end the show. You're going to lead into OK Boomer. So if you want to just say, okay,
Oh,
now
okay.
we're going to next up is a segment.
All right. All right. What a great checklist we're doing. Great job to my team who's been working really hard on the checklist, suffering through it. In fact, trust me, they're working with me and they're suffering. But next up on the program, it wouldn't be Friday if we didn't have Reporting Rachel's amazing series, OK Boomer. So without further ado, let's boomer this out.
Good.
Wait, you like that or you
Let's
don't like
boomer
it?
this out.
I think that was funny.
You think-
I think it may have been on brand. Yeah.
Let's boomer this out. Yeah. We should sell T-shirts with that phrase on it.
I like
We want to get more catchphrases for the show.
What
Like
is
noted.
that?
I want you guys brainstorming some new.
Wait, have you ever seen the movie I Love You Man with Paul Rudd and
Yes.
Jason Segel, when he like Paul Rudd keeps saying like weird phrases on the phone because he's like nervous and he's like "Laters on the men, Jay," and Jason Segel's like, "What is that? What are you talking about? What does that mean?" That was like one of
I want
those.
more catchphrases from
Let's
you,
boomer
Nick.
this
You're
out.
good at that. You're good at the catchphrase. I want more catchphrases. Okay. All right. Here's our intro. 3, 2. Okay. We just did our first collaboration today. We did it. 3, 2. Okay. Today, I am really excited to have Justin Kahn on the program. You know, Justin, an amazing, amazing founder and investor, thinker. He's got a great YouTube channel. And what we did on today's show is we did a live restream with my YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/thisweekin, and Justin's, which is youtube.com/JustinConTV, which you should go subscribe to. And Restream let us publish to both. We had both of our audiences asking us interesting questions, and we just riffed. Just 2 entrepreneurs, 2 startup thinkers, 2 podcasters, and 2 investors riffing for about an hour. I think it went over an hour. And it was just great to catch up with Justin. And then both of our YouTube audiences got to see it. So I want to do these like once a month. I think we'll have Gary Tan do one. If you know of anybody else, I think Downtown Josh Brown would be cool. Maybe doing Pomp would be cool. Anybody who's doing streaming on YouTube on a regular basis and understands how to do a live stream would qualify for this. So if you have an idea for somebody who would be a good collaboration, just email producers at thisweekinstartups.com. It'll go to all 3 producers and me, and we'll consider your pitch, or don't pitch us yourself. I mean, I guess you could, but we don't take pitches. But you could send us, if you're a fan of the show, who you think would be a good collab. But before we get to that, we have to talk about Miramax suing Quentin Tarantino over his NFT project and my idea for the QTD and my idea for the most brilliant DAO of all time, the QT, the Quentin DAO. Coming soon, I hope. Stick with us. It's going to be a great episode.
Good. Last thing, 2 ad reads.
Oh, go. Oh, sneaky.
It's 2 that you like.
GFY.
You like these ones. You like doing these ones.
GFY. You know what that stands for? GFY.
I know what it stands for.
Good for
boomer
you.
Let's boomer these ad reads out.
Fiverr and Broker LinkedIn.
You just need to do the first 2, Fiverr and Broker.
Okay, 5. I like both of those. You're right.
I know you do.
3, 2. If you're trying to nail an important project before the end of the year, you might need some extra help. I know I do. Well, look no further than Fiverr Business. Fiverr Business puts a world of expert freelancers at your fingertips, so you can get any project across the finish. You can get any project across the finish line and be really proud of your work. It is really hard to hire full-time people right now, and we can't sit around and wait during this great resignation when people are sitting on the sidelines with their stimmy checks and NFTs. We need to get these projects done, and you know what? Freelancers are an amazing option, perhaps the best one for today's market. So, well, you just made a change here. Where am I? Which line am I on? Okay. Plus, Plus, Fiverr has everything you need to seamlessly integrate your new team members into your workflow. We love Fiverr here at Launch. We hired a bunch of researchers, right? Research is easy. but we don't have enough people to do it. So we were able to scale up very quickly. And you know what I did? I said, find me founders in these categories. And I set these researchers. They went out and they got us leads. These leads could be used for This Week in Startups advertisers or to invite people to events or to find speakers. You get the idea. It worked brilliantly. And I didn't have to take my key employees off of investing in companies or producing the podcast. They just took the research, which was excellent, and they started on second or third base with inviting people to events or maybe contacting people for an investment. Fiverr just works. So stop wasting time. Searching for talent that may never arrive because it's really competitive right now. And then you got to train people. Oh, so much work. Just leave it to Fiverr Business. They have a team of dedicated business success managers that will help match you with the best talent for your team. So they're even going to take it a step further. You don't have to just go and find the freelancers on their website yourself. You can do that, and it's pretty easy, I'll be honest. But man, if you get that business success manager, they're going to handhold you, and they're going to VIP concierge you, and it works. So no more endless guessing, no more interviews, no more drama, freelancers disappearing. Nope. You can also save your favorite freelancers for future projects, which is kind of cool. So find the freelancers you need and give your next project the boost that it needs to give you a strong finish. Right now, you can sign up for Fiverr Business absolutely free for the first year. Get 1 free year and save 10% on your purchase of Fiverr Business with the promo code JASON. That's right. Go to fiverr.com/business and don't forget the promo code JASON, JASON. That's fiverr.com/business. Remember, there's 2 R's in Fiverr. fiverr.com/business. Use the promo code JASON. Okay.
Good, no pickups.
All right, 3, 2. If you don't have business insurance, you failed one of the first steps of being a great founder. Startups should look no further than Embroker. Embroker's technology saves you time and money. Prices are like up to 20% lower, and they got better coverage than all these slow incumbents. You can go from sign up to quote and purchase in just 10 minutes. I kid you not. And when you work with Embroker instead of business insurance incumbents, you're not dealing with large, slow corporations. The sign up takes days, not weeks, and the process is so transparent. There's no opaque pricing. There's no negotiation. You just get it all done. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. I'm going to quickly explain to you one crucial type of startup insurance that Embroker covers. It's called E&O. You may have heard it or overheard it. It covers errors and omissions, and that'll help you deal with scaling your business because any major customer that you want to, and because any major customer you try to sign up is going to say, hey, can you show us your E&O? It's part of the diligence process. So you may not hear that from some small customers, but when you get to the big ones, you're going to need it. So you want to get it now. It's not that expensive. These things are part of the process of growing up as a startup. You want to get your insurance right, your HR right, your legal right, your accounting right. And you know what? I find sometimes people wait until they get burned to put on their insurance. The insurance is not that expensive. You want to do it proactively, especially if you've raised money recently. That's the perfect time to deploy a little bit of capital into protecting the kingdom, protect your enterprise. So to instantly buy custom-built insurance for startups, go to embroker.com/twist. And while you're there, you get 10% off. They're already amazing prices by using the offer code TWIST, TWIST, Embroker, EMBROKER.com/twist. All right. Thanks for supporting the show, Embroker. Love you guys.
Good. Great read.
Thank you. Energy's high today. I did not sleep with the Bulldogs.
Congrats.
I don't know if it's a reason for congratulations, but it was a reason to get some sleep. Oh my God, it's been rough. It's been rough.
All right. You have a meeting.
I think I'm going to come to New York to go to that Lakers game on Tuesday. You going to Lakers game on Tuesday, Nick?
No.
Why not?
I got work.
Do you want to go to
my
the
boss
Lakers
is my boss is a psycho. He's been keeping me up lately. So
on a Tuesday? we have a show on Wednesday. We have a show on Wednesday, by the way, next week.
Seems like a ridiculous request.
We do. We have shows Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. We have shows.
No Thursday, Friday?
So we're thinking about dropping something on Friday since nobody is going to be around.
Totally drop something on Friday. Do not lose that spot because people on the long weekend love a pod.
Yeah, I think some sponsors actually requested not to have their show air on Thursday, Friday. So we had to move some things around.
Well, if we have but one or two sponsors, I could do a shorty about over the long weekend. So I'm not saying we recorded over the weekend, but we could do it ahead of time, like an
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
But I mean, people who are in the Noti gang, who are in the chat right now in the live stream, tell me, do you have the same experience I have? It's a holiday weekend or a long weekend. and all your podcasters take off, and you go into your podcast player when you are going to go to the gym or take a hike or you're going on a long drive, and there's no podcasts. Does anybody have the holiday no podcast blues? Or am I the only psychopath who has this issue? Does anybody else have this issue? What about on our... Do you guys listen to podcasts? I know you work
I
on-
listen to podcasts. One of my favorite comedians or longest running podcasts that I listen to.
Uh-huh.
He's got a strict "I don't take holidays off" policy.
Who's
and
this?
He says, NPR, they're going to give you a rerun. I'm going to give
Hmm.
you a fresh one every time.
Oh,
And I appreciate
rerun,
that
fresh
as a
run.
fan.
Oh, a fresh one versus a rerun. I like that.
Yeah, he doesn't do it.
That
He doesn't do reruns.
you notice
on his
what
podcast.
is that? Fresh run versus rerun. What can you tell me about persuasion in that phrase?
Rhymes.
It rhymes.
It'll stick in people's heads because
It will fire those neurons. Thank you.
Boomer this out doesn't rhyme, but I think it's pretty good too.
Okay, Boomer does, because it's out there already. We co-opted Okay, Boomer. So, but yeah. Would you ever upload the video format to Spotify? Yes, I'd like
Yeah,
to.
we're
do that.
working on it. Spotify currently only allows their umbrella of shows to upload videos.
Oh, is that right?
I actually was in contact with someone pretty high up there, and then he was like, "Hey, I'll put you on the list to be the next show added." And then he was like, "Hey, we're moving this to like 2022. Sorry."
No problem.
So
I noticed they're doing paid now, and they open that up to everybody.
yep, Apple too.
So it's open up to everybody. Are we signed up for that yet?
So we have an account. We have not published anything yet, though.
So we could publish one, and then people who are subscribers would see it.
Mm-hmm.
Jake, I'll need that skincare routine. Looking less Boomer now.
He's asking you for your skincare routine.
Oh,
not saying you need
I'll
one.
lose 20 fucking pounds and not be a fat bastard, and your skin looks better. It really is that simple. You're not noticing. You're not noticing my skin getting better. You're noticing my face going from looking like Ernie to Bert. That's what's happening here.
You're not doing. You don't have a blood boy.
I don't
I heard that's the new. That's the new rage.
Svelte.
All right, you got to go. You have a founder meeting.
Okay. All right, Notice. Love you guys. Everybody thumbs up the video on the way out so that
And
it
send
does
that
well on
audio,
the rankings.
please.
And I'll send the audio. All right. Bye-bye, Notice. I'll see you later. I'm going to be on tonight at 3:30, 4:30 time period to talk about the Constitution auction.
Yep.
Make sure you guys record live.